Hello and welcome back to the One Life podcast, where we talk about things from One Life Church, but ultimately things we think can relate to you and your one and only life. My name is Sarah Inman. I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by co-host of the podcast and our lead pastor, Brett Nicholson. Hi, Brett.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm still glad to have this job. I was thinking about that.
Wow.
It's I've been the co-host for a while, but I can understand how you might be scanning and kind of going,
is there someone different?
Someone else in the seat. Yeah. And so I don't take it for granted. I just want to let you know that.
Well, I appreciate you being here, Brett. I mean, I don't know if people would come on to just talk to me, so.
I don't know.
Yes, they would, Sarah.
Yes, they would, and I happen to know that. That's why I'm grateful to be sitting here.
Thanks again for letting me do
riding
this.
Your coattails.
We're on episode 105.
Is it really?
Yeah, 105.
That's amazing. Check it out.
We've been doing this for a while now. Yeah, we have changed it a few times. We have some different equipment and different kind of space we record in, and kind of keep trying to make it better. And so it's always fun. My favorite always is just getting to hang out and talk to people. So I love that we get to do that. Today we get to talk to one of our friends here, our co-staff member, Sarah Bougher. Sarah's joining us on the podcast today. What's going on, Sarah?
Not much. I'm just really excited about our Easter service that we had yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
That was great.
It was. I was thinking about that, and maybe that's even, it's not really part of the conversation we have for this, but I was thinking about that this morning as we were talking to some people from our staff. We were kind of celebrating some things that happened on Easter, and I was like, Easter is obviously, it's a big day for church. It's a big day, a lot of things to celebrate. I mean, it's why we meet. It's why church exists. We're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus because everything's different because of that. But it really is every year kind of that time where people, either if they haven't been in church, and obviously this past year has been very different. People really haven't been around physically, but it's a big day for community, Christian community. I mean, a lot of times you see people that you don't see super often or haven't seen in a while, and it's just a reminder of like, oh, this is my church.
It's like the Super Bowl of Sundays at church.
Yeah.
It really is. That's right.
Yes.
And same level of crowds, and you get to see people that you don't see normally.
Yep.
It has been a while.
Yeah. So it was, I enjoyed it as well. It was a good day, and seeing a lot of people, and then also the weather was great. I don't know, that always makes a big difference too. Yeah. And we did some cool pictures, and I think we have 3 campuses here at One Life, and each campus had a little bit of a photo booth kind of thing set up, which was cool to see some of those posted on social media.
And this year it was
fun.
I love the fact that it's in the spring. I think that helps it, because typically the weather is at least getting better and all that. And then we had the COVID thing because last year we did not have that experience.
We didn't.
I sat in my car last year and honked my horn instead of clapping. I remember doing that at December.
Honk if you love Jesus.
Yeah, but so it was. I'm glad we did that, but I'm glad we're back to normal. So.
Yeah, it was good. Really and cool. I mean, even today we wanted to bring Sarah on because Sarah, we want to talk about, as we've been in the series about restorative practices, things that have just helped us restore what feels like kind of a broken spirit and soul and a lot of things from the past year. And one of the things that Sarah's passionate about is people connecting with each other and community. And so seeing that yesterday, I felt like, wow, it's even better. Like we already had this planned, but it's kind of worked out to even think about yesterday being that, seeing that, and then having a conversation about how does that play a role into a kind of our restorative, just restoring us in this series. And so we wanted to bring Sarah on and just have some fun conversation. So we get to do today. So Sarah, we always start out kind of having people tell us a little bit about themselves and kind of tell us a little bit, maybe your role at One Life and just some things about you.
Well, I am the group's director at One Life East, and I've been in that position for the past 2 years. I also have an undergraduate degree in counseling and rehabilitation from Marshall University. Okay. Go Herd.
Oh.
Herd?
Go Herd.
Herd, H-E-R-D.
As in bison or buffalo.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean.
Yeah.
Just Go Herd. All right.
Go Herd.
Right. It just struck me as kind of comical. Go ahead.
Yes, I know. It is kind of funny when people say Go Herd. And I also have a master's degree from Gordon-Conwell in Christian counseling.
Oh.
So.
And you've had some experience, like even just doing that, like.
Yes, I did private practice in all 4 states that I've lived in: West Virginia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Indiana.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I realized that at one time, probably when we were interviewing you, but I had forgotten that.
Yes.
And thus, that's one of the main reasons that we have Sarah on today, because of her experience and her background, and it seems to fit the subject matter. So it's not just she's on staff and we're taking turns with staff.
Right.
We have had
that's true.
We have had quite a few, but I mean, your background and experience in education and professional skills and all that match the kind of subject matter we're talking about.
Yes.
Well, when you started thinking about wanting to go getting a master's in that, what made you want to do that? What made you want to pursue that?
I think several different things, just life experiences of things that I've been through myself, and then just wanting to help people through the hard times in their life and challenges that they face.
Yeah. Because I think, in a sense, a lot of people in ministry feel like they get to do that, but being able to have some actual training in some of these conversations, because I've been in conversations where I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that.
Yes.
And being able to have a little bit of help and some tools for that, man, it's got to be super
And for those who may not realize this, and I don't know about Marshall and Go Herd and all that, but I do know when in the graduate world of seminary and that Gordon-Conwell's kind of upper tier. It's like a Harvard level sort of thing, and almost as good as Oral Roberts University. Not quite, but
almost.
Just almost,
but not
just
quite,
right around, tipping towards that. So
we don't have.
No, it was. I remember you had that resume. I was wow, okay, that's the real deal right there.
Yes.
So everybody ought to listen up.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so as we think about, with your experience here at One Life even, and thinking about people interacting with people in groups, that's something that we know is a big culture. It's a big deal to have that kind of culture in a church, is to be able to have people interacting with each other. Because we can say, coming to service is amazing and it's a great step, but having just a group of people to do life with and grow with is so important. I know it's been important for me. Why is it important to you? Why is it something important other people should think is important?
Well, I think it's important because groups provide an atmosphere for just better mental health overall. I think that it becomes somewhat of a little incubator, if you will, to help people walk through all of the problems that they face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to do life alone. And the more I've spent time in the New Testament, especially, and as you realize what the church is supposed to be, I always go back to the one another. It's the assumption throughout, and that's really what the groups thing is really all about, is just kind of moving people in that one another experience. And especially if they need restoration, then that's your share of it. And hopefully you have an environment. And I know you have a group that's been together. How long now?
Oh gosh, several years. Probably 5 years.
Okay.
I would say.
And so that's time enough to get down deep into one another's lives, I would assume.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep. We help each other walk through the ups and the downs of our marriages, and as you know, everybody has their ups and their downs in marriages, and we've really helped each other walk through those times and be vulnerable with each other and confess our weaknesses and things like that. So
it makes you think, like, what if you didn't have that? And that's what people don't see, is that the kind of, because you can't get that from a sermon or just kind of listening to something, but the interactive quality and everything. It does make me wonder, if you remove that, what would be the state of your marriages? I don't want to go into that, but it's a good question to ask, because people don't realize that that's what's happening in living rooms around the tri-state.
Right.
So
one thing that really I think is helpful for all the other group members to see, when Brian and I share the things that we're going through, they think, oh, they do that too. Like, we just had that fight this week. So it's good to see. I think that your group leaders aren't always perfect, and
even if they went to Gordon-Conwell,
even if they went to Gordon-Conwell,
wow, that would be a shocking experience. But it's true. Yeah, you come out with those things, and it loosens people up to share their own and get authentic, and that's how it's supposed to work. It's great.
Yep.
I was thinking, actually, this weekend, I was spending some time with some friends, and I was like, I was always friends with them, and then in the last year, they were probably one of the 2 places I really spent time with them. And I was like, it really created an atmosphere to get close with people. Like, and maybe there was already people you were kind of doing life with. And when you kind of made that decision, like, I'm going here, I'm not going anywhere else, trying to be safe, trying to follow protocols and do all the right things. And some people, that's family. I don't have family in town, but you find friends that are like family. And so do you think you've seen that with people that kind of decided, like, these are my people I'm going to spend time with? They got closer?
Definitely. So when we lived in Pennsylvania, we had a group that we were a part of, and we were all transplants, every single one of us. And we became like a family to each other, and, supported each other through our marriages and new babies and moving. And that group, even when I went away one weekend, it was while I was pregnant with Ella, and I came back and they had painted my nursery for me.
Goodness.
Yeah.
It was a huge surprise. I came home, they painted it just the colors I wanted it, and it was great.
Oh, wow.
It was a great surprise.
And yeah, part of that happens because people know you. You
Yes.
spend time with them and they get to know you. I asked this in a question we sent you, but and you kind of talked about it just there, but like, how other ways have you seen your life change through relationships, friendships, connection? Because I think ultimately we say groups, we say, whatever your church calls it or your community calls it, we call them growth groups here. I'm thinking about it for a second.
Is it small groups?
Well, that's
Is it growth
okay.
group?
Still, the name
Is it life
change we
group?
did
Yeah.
haunts us to this day.
Yes.
Growth groups in that's really what it is. It's just a space to do life with people, to have connection, to grow friendships, to grow in faith. And we want to grow. That's what we
Yes.
call them growth groups here. But, how have you seen, other ways that change?
Well, I met my husband when I was single.
Really?
In a group that we were in. We had a great group, a lot like one of the groups that Brett was a part of years ago. That was just a bunch of single people together, and a lot of us ended up meeting and getting married in that group. And so we all, that was a great place to be, besides a bar, to meet your spouse.
Wow.
So
It typically feels like a choice. That's what, the group that I was a part of, a whole lot of One Lifers, those who helped plant One Life came out of that group. It was just a 20-something singles thing, anywhere from 50 to 100 people. And I think there was one lady that counted. We had 63 marriages come out of that.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh my goodness! Wow, 63.
Yeah, I think that was the
Wow.
number she
Now
arrived
we
at.
didn't have that number.
Yeah, because it went on for several years. I mean, there was different generations of, but there was an older lady that she was hosting it in her home, and she kept a journal of.
Oh, man.
I mean, that wasn't the purpose
That's
of the
so
thing,
cool, though.
But incidentally, apparently, if you want a husband, join a growth group.
That's right.
It's weird. I'm in a couple groups. That's weird. Huh, hasn't happened yet.
Oh, maybe it will, Sarah.
No, I'm good.
Maybe so.
They're
I'm
kind of
very-
overrated, to be honest.
Well, I'll say I'm very comfortable with myself and how
really.
I am. So throw that
coming
out
from
there.
a husband,
Good for you.
I'd say it's all good.
So when we think about connecting with people, I think about this sometimes because I think we've said this before, and I remember when I first started looking even for a group here at One Life, because that was my first thing. I thought, okay, if I'm going to get connected here, I'm going to connect to a group of people that I don't know very well and kind of create my own space of friends. And that ended up being incredible and worked out really well. But I also remember people saying here early on, if you find a group, it's not the right fit for you, check out another one. There's other options.
That's
and I've heard
right.
you say this before when you're talking about growth groups. And so I think, is there a right way to connect with people? Is there a wrong way to connect with people? Because I think maybe just trying and seeing if it fits is one way, but are there ways that you've seen people connect? It's that was the right way to do it, or maybe a way you're try something different.
Yeah. So I do tell people that if, you just don't feel that it's a right fit for you, that's okay. Just try different groups. And I tell the leaders, don't be alarmed if this person doesn't come back to your group. We're just helping them find the right group for them and the right fit for them. So I've discovered that there's two types of people, the introverts and the extroverts, which you guys probably know about. And for introverts, I think it's trust is a very difficult thing for them. Yeah. And just being able to find at least one person in that group that they can connect with and kind of share more of their life with. So that once they find that person that I can share a little bit more of my life with this person because I trust them for whatever reason, I think it makes it easier for them to open up later as they learn to trust more people in the group. And sometimes it's okay. Sometimes there are people we shouldn't trust.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, they make us feel threatened. And so that's for the introvert. But for the extrovert, they sometimes have a tendency to overshare sometimes. It can be the opposite problem. And so that I can say that because I'm an extrovert and I feel very comfortable in a lot of different situations. And sometimes I overshare. Sometimes I say things that I shouldn't say. So for the extrovert, I think learning to listen to other people is key for them, and letting other people share within the group. So that's what I think, is as far as right and wrong. As an extrovert, too, if you see someone wanting to avoid you, maybe you need to tone it down a little bit. And
I won't ask if you had experience with that, but if you see somebody walking the other way,
see somebody walking the other way, or maybe rolling their eyes when you start talking.
Well, I have found that when it comes to coaching that I've received is go into a group asking yourself what you can contribute to it, rather than what it can contribute to you.
That's right.
Go in there with a servant's mindset instead of not taking an interest in others, instead of hoping people will be interested in you.
Right.
And that's typically very helpful. And if you're an extrovert, you might occasionally ask a question. Just occasionally. Take an interest in what someone else has to say.
Yes.
And if you're an introvert, you don't want to do small talk anyway. Well, typically what I've found, I'm an introvert, so I've found that a lot of people, once you get them going, they don't have a problem talking at all.
That's
you just ask the right question, and they can go for a half hour.
Yes.
They'll just go and go and go.
Yes, they will. Ask them one question, it's like starting a lawnmower.
That's exactly right. But, that takes the pressure off. If you happen to be introverted, just go into a room and just ask somebody about their life. And then you just sit back and listen.
That's right.
Nod a lot.
That's right.
From experience.
Yeah, there's something ringing in here.
Yes, that's probably my phone.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fine. You were saying that, first off, Brett, you're an introvert? You think you're an introvert?
Oh, I know I'm an introvert. You didn't know that? Are you being
No, I did know that. I just think people will probably be surprised because they're like, oh, well, you teach on Sunday morning, so you must be an extrovert. But, that's...
Well, the difference is the question you want to ask yourself if you're an introvert or extrovert is, where do I get my energy from? Do I get my energy from being around other people? Does that energize me and make me happy? And I'm excited after I've gone to a group or been to church, or does it take a lot of energy from me?
Okay.
So if it takes a lot of energy from you, then you're probably an introvert.
Okay.
That's how I know I'm an introvert.
So if you come up and talk to Brett, and he's like, I'm just trying to get away.
Man, that was draining.
Yeah.
No, I've learned, I do get energized by working with teams and things. I do. But if I have one social thing after the other, especially in my line of work, I go from place to place to place. I can tell, okay, I need to be in a cabin somewhere and just hide for a while. And then I can kind of do it again.
Yes.
But other people are just the opposite. They'll go if they're alone, and then they have to seek someone out. My son's a great example of that. He's if he doesn't seek out people, he'll wither.
Right. If I am home alone by myself, I start hearing things, and I want people to be there. Yeah. I just need that noise and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I think I can be both. I think there's times where I'm like, most of the time I want other people around, and other times I'm like, I need a break. I'm going to be shut off from the world. I'm going to close the curtains. All those
a lot
things.
of the extroverts don't realize they need that time to recharge so they can be around other people.
And it's the same with introverts too. You realize you need to be around other people.
Yes.
You just live inside your own head too much.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
That'd be a guide.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I was thinking about that. This is a kind of a different question. When you're talking about kind of the right and the wrong and kind of understanding, one of the things you said was a lot of times introverts, or even people that are checking out a group or just connecting with people for the first time, they'll find one person that they kind of connect with.
Yes.
How can we say we're the people that are hosting, we're someone's hosting a group or hosting people? How do you kind of be on the look for that? Like, how do you, because I'm sure that's not necessarily always easy to do, to kind of look for, like, what can I do to connect with someone? Like, are there typical questions maybe you'd ask someone to get to know them, or anything like that?
Well, I think the standard questions like, do you have any kids? Are you married? Do you have any pets? People love to talk about their pets.
Yeah.
So, and I find that a lot of introverts have cats and a lot of extroverts have dogs.
Interesting.
Dogs are more social. Cats are more introverted.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe we could take a poll to see how many introverts have a cat, how many extroverts.
We had a cat, and I remember liking the fact that the cat just was kind of a low maintenance.
Yes.
You could either ignore the cat or be with the cat. You didn't have to. But the dog, we do have a dog, and the dog takes maintenance and demands attention.
That's right.
Anytime I sit down, she'll come up and want to be with me, you know, and sit on my lap and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
I was just thinking about that. I mean, I think for me, a lot of times I used to work with students a lot, middle school and high school students, and those were always the kids that I felt like I would gravitate towards, the one that were kind of off by themselves.
Yes.
Because not that it was like a project, but I'm like, that was me. I know I wanted someone to come talk to me, and I wasn't going to go talk to them. So I'll go and be like, hey, and just kind of start just sitting and talking, and if they don't want to talk, I just sit, until a point where it starts to become a little more comfortable for them to either ask a question, or maybe they never talk to me and I'm just that awkward person that they don't want bothering them because they don't want to be there. But I think sometimes, a lot of times, that's the first thing, is like if you kind of making the initiative to go over and talk to somebody. So.
Yes. Or tell me something interesting you did last weekend.
Yeah.
Or what's your favorite hobby, or, the thing that you like to do the most when you're by yourself.
Yeah. Ooh, those are good. Those are good opportunities there. When we talk about restoration, we talk about feeling restored. How does connection and community with people help us actually do that?
So I've noticed, so I found this really cool thing from the Mental Health Foundation, how community affects our mental health. And it says that people who are more socially connected to family, friends, or a group are happier, physically healthier, and live longer with fewer mental health problems than people who are less connected. And I thought that was really interesting, because that's what I believe, and it was nice to see that somebody could affirm that. And they say it's not the number of people that you're connected to, but the quality of those relationships that you're connected to. So I noticed, Sarah, the older I get, the fewer very close friends that I have. They see me for who I am and accept me for who I am. So it's not necessarily a thing where I feel like I have to have 30 friends to feel connected and loved. So but the friendships that I do have are very good quality friendships.
And part of that, I mean, probably feels like when you can just be yourself, that feels like rest in a sense.
Yes.
Like you show up at someone's house and you can be in your sweatpants or, however, that's what I think of as rest to me. Like, can I go to my friend's house and take a nap? Like, can I be at their house? Just be there. But there are people that you kind of still have acquaintance with and you're like, maybe I see them a couple times a year, but it's not the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen research like that and it takes the pressure off in a sense. Like, if you feel what do you need to feel connected, it's not knowing 30 people, it's not going to parties all the time, it's not, it is having just a few, 1, 2, 3 truly deep close friends, that's what you ought to be going for and even nurturing, because that gets you those health benefits and all that sort of stuff.
And I tell group leaders, don't feel threatened if you see a group member in your group that's not real connected to you. They might be connected closely to someone else in the group, and that's great. That's a great thing, because someone else in the group is serving as that person that they need to speak to and talk to about things. So, different personalities will mesh better than others. So,
Yeah, I've always liked the name small groups because they, by definition, are small. I've been in groups that were, I remember there were 4 guys that I used to meet with years ago that we met every week, and we became very close, and it was just the 4 of us, and that's okay. You know, Jesus said 2 or 3 are gathered. So, that's right. And I think that's important as you're looking for restorative practices. It's not about being a part of some big social thing. It's more about just finding good, solid, trustworthy connections, even on small levels.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So everybody needs to do that.
So we're changing the name to small groups? Is that what you just said?
I'm okay with that.
That did cross my mind. Like, yes, we are, just to make everybody completely.
It's so hard to say growth group.
It really is. It doesn't
double GR.
Yeah, we used to call them life groups. I have been tempted a number of times just to go back to that, but I couldn't.
People still
face
say that life groups.
They do, and that's one of the reasons I did it, because it just rolls off the tongue, and it does to this day for many people.
Yeah.
And so I've thought about changing it, just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
I've lobbied for it.
Well, that's another podcast. We'll just have we'll just turn on the mics and have a brainstorm of all that. Yeah.
There you go.
You know, one of the things you had actually sent us some answers, which first of all, thanks, Sarah. That's really nice to send like some of the answers to some of these questions so we can process through them. And one of the things you were talking about in the answer to this question, which I think is really fascinating, you said that the people that you're close with, you know, the people that help us restore, are the people that ask us the hard questions.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because sometimes I feel like I'm not supposed to, but you say that people really want that.
Right. I think when people are putting themselves out there by going to a group, oftentimes with people they don't know, you know, it's a new situation and they're walking into that, you know, not knowing a lot of the people in the group. I think they're asking questions like, I want you to ask me the hard stuff. If I'm struggling with my teenager, you know, what are some of the questions we can ask those people? How are you building bridges with your teenagers? Mm-hmm. If somebody's struggling in their marriage, you know, you can ask them, what are you doing to build bridges with the person that you're struggling with? Mm-hmm. Issues of unforgiveness and things like that. You know, I think that people really want to be challenged spiritually, and that in going to a group helps do that and says, hey, I want to grow. I want to be a better person. Yeah.
Because that's how you learn. How other people experience life is different than the way you experience it, and you're going to learn from that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I've heard in different relationships, if you're not disagreeing one of you isn't necessary. So,
that's right.
Because otherwise it's just groupthink to the point where other people are just thinking your thoughts after you, and there's not any growth, there's not any stretch, there's not any push.
That's right. I think there's a difference between healthy conviction and feeling guilt or shame when you go to a group. You don't want a group that makes you feel shameful when you leave, but I think there is such a thing as healthy conviction. And the way you know the difference, I think, is it in the Bible? You know, is this something that Jesus talks about? Is this something, you know, when Jesus uses all the parables in the Bible to teach us things, you know, does that compare to how my leader or other group members in the group are, you know, saying those things?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's the difference to me. Is this from God or is this from man?
Yeah. And I think that's a good kind of segue to another question. And we kind of have to ask this because we're talking about so far mostly Christian community. But there might be community that we're in that's not good for us.
Right.
We're in connection with groups of people that maybe isn't helping us either spiritually, mentally, just grow in general. How do we know? How do we know if we are? Like, is there a way to kind of gauge that? Because a lot of times we're probably like, no, it's great. And then you're like, actually, that's really bad for you.
If we're in unhealthy or healthy community?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of listed out some things that I think reminded me of healthy community. So healthy community is the people or the group members accept you as you are. You don't need to change for them to welcome you. You can come in your sweatpants and your Oral Roberts t-shirt, and they will just accept you
and take a nap
just like you are.
And they won't judge me.
The people in the group or the team are open about the good and the bad in their lives. So we don't just all talk about bad. We don't all talk about the good things. It's a good mix.
Balance.
Yes. They respect your boundaries and allow you to open up at your own pace. So if you have an introvert who's not quite ready, don't push them to open up until they are ready. As far as unhealthy, I think you want to be cautious of a leader who demands respect or authority. That's a red flag. If you feel fear or shame, we talked about that when you are with those people, and not respecting individualism. You might have a mix of people who are politically polarized in your group. So we want to respect,
especially this last year.
Yes. And expectations of feeling like you need to share something you're not ready to share. So that would be an unhealthy group.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I mean, it's a little bit of a different conversation, but I mean, we've seen different Christian leaders kind of have things come up in their life that kind of pull them away from this. And it's like even talking about cautious of a leader who demands this respect or authority. And I'm not saying they all did that, but there's a sense of that feeling of some of these people that you're like, you weren't allowed to ask questions, or you weren't allowed to kind of question some of those things. That's one thing I love is that I question Brett all the time. So, and that's been, I think it does make you feel like that you're heard, you're respected in those things. And that feels more like a healthy community. But yeah, I think the not respecting individualism is definitely something that you could spend a lot of time discussing because it is hard. I think all of us have kind of asked different questions maybe we've ever asked in the last year. I mean, so many people were so volatile in so many different conversations. You felt like you couldn't say anything if it was different. It's just really interesting to think of that we don't always think of. Then you're not creating a space where people can actually connect with each other.
That's right. Yep. You want to hear people out, even if you disagree with them, just hear someone else's viewpoint and affirm them and, find the common things that you do agree on and have healthy conversations around what you don't agree on. It's okay.
Yeah. Because typically people's, they're let's say the political thing, you're the one that mentioned it, not me.
Sure.
But sometimes it's a part of their journey, their story. First of all, their background.
Yep.
I mean, I was raised a certain way around certain political ideas that I just kind of got into my system because that's the way I was raised. But someone who is wise would kind of get that out of me. Like, what was your journey like? And I need to be the same way. Instead of just arguing the point.
Yes.
Be like, tell me where that came from.
Yes. Why do you believe that?
Yeah. Why do you believe that? What was your journey like? Because, I thought very differently politically when I was in college than I do now. And so I've had different things happen in my life that were kind of light bulb moments for me and that maybe shift over. So if you take an interest in another person for who they are, rather than this simple little belief that they have or something, sometimes you can go a lot further than that.
Yes.
I think that's one of the ways we can at least get to that kind of environment that's a lot more accepting when it comes to those. That list is really good. We ought to post that or something.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, good.
So check out the show notes.
Okay, we can do that. You're not going to disagree with me about that right now? You're not going to question me about that?
No.
Okay, good. All right.
Just rewrite it.
Just want you to know you can.
Thanks, Brett. That's a whole great conversation. I feel like, giving people because that's what's one thing we want to do with the podcast and continue asking questions is give people, kind of practices and tools in their tool belt. We kind of say a lot around here is what are things they can do in those. And I think that's just a good way to ask. I know personally I had someone come to me recently and said, hey, I feel like I can't speak, what I'm thinking because I'm going to be treated a different way. And I was just like, I didn't even that just doesn't process in my brain, but I didn't realize the way I was responding things, even just responding to them. Maybe I wasn't directly saying, you can't say that, just the way I responded to them or not responding to them sometimes, created an atmosphere where they felt like they couldn't share themselves, even if we disagree.
Right.
So, it's good to kind of be able to, and I felt like that's a really healthy conversation to be able to have with somebody.
Yep.
Okay. So we don't want to talk about, obviously, the last year, we created a lot of conversations digitally.
Yes.
I've had a lot of digital community. Yeah. I just popped up, the Facebook memories. This is 1 year later. And it was one of my groups. And I had taken a screenshot of all of us. And I was like, that was 1 year ago. It doesn't feel like it was that far, that long ago. And yet it feels like it was ages ago because we've met a few times in person since and it's been great. What are your thoughts on digital community connection, seeing people that way?
Well, when we first started with Zoom, out of necessity, I think, through COVID, I thought, wow, this is so cool that we can connect this way. Technology is amazing. And so I'm actually a part of a group that meets every other Tuesday night. It's a little goal setting group for women, and we all come together and through Zoom. And we have a woman from Curacao. Have you ever heard of Curacao?
I have not.
It's an island, a beautiful island. So we have a woman from there and a woman from New Zealand in that group. We have people from Seattle and Chicago and kind of everywhere. And it is so cool. I would not have met those women any other way. So it was just something I kind of put out on a Facebook group that I'm in, and I said, hey, let's meet together for some accountability to our goals. And people just started signing up. It was neat.
Oh, you started that group?
I did.
Oh, wow. And you got people from all over the world joining it.
It is really cool. Yeah. So for that reason, I think it's great. I think that enables us to meet together when we wouldn't be able to otherwise. And it's been good for me as far as seeing other cultures and how they do things. And so I like it for that reason. It's also helped, I know, through Grace Marriage when we had to meet over Zoom. It was good for the parents who had small kids because they were still able to attend without, having to find a sitter and that sort of thing. So that was really neat. I found some research on Zoom, and they're finding that there is such a thing called virtual fatigue. And even though it doesn't have a formal diagnosis, but I've found that the women in that group who live in bigger cities, they're still very much doing everything by Zoom. Their work meetings, their friendship meetings, their family meetings. There's one girl in Seattle that she said, I basically haven't been out of my house. So she was real excited to get her vaccine and be able to get out of the house. But they're finding that virtual fatigue, and the reason it's becoming such a problem is because when you think of Zoom, you have the excessive amounts of close eye contact, like every day. It's like looking in a mirror all day long. So you're constantly having to make sure your hair's right and everything's right, giving the thumbs up, and, constantly it's like you're on camera all day long. So none of us really signed up to be news anchors all day long, I don't think. So it reduces your mobility. You can't get up and move around. You're kind of in a fixed spot of having to, think about that having to work like that all day long. And so just those are some of the things that are causing that. And I think for that reason, it's good to start meeting in person, even if we have to wear masks and be 6 feet apart from each other. I think that is better than having to be on Zoom all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad they quantified some of that, because we all know it exists, and it was always something I can't put my finger on, because I was probably guilty of being more annoyed with it than I should be over time. I don't want to do this, but I started doing some comparisons, like, what's the difference between an in-person meeting and a Zoom meeting? And some of it's just the dynamics of the interaction. Because if you're in a meeting with 12 people, you can kind of sub-interact with 3 people over here, just with a joke or just or ask about their family, the person sitting right next to you. You can whisper something to them or whatever else, and you lose all of that. Like you said, it is like, I like that way of saying it. We're all being news anchors. And you can it's this very two-dimensional interaction. And so that would be straining. I think it is. Not that it's bad. Again, I meet with people from around the country too. And that's really cool. You can do that, but it doesn't replace. It's just kind of a bonus track.
That's right.
I guess, in some sense.
I remember when we had our first staff meeting in person, how good that felt.
Oh, it feels
so good to do that.
Brett's phones are getting in.
I am so sorry.
Hi, Brett's phone.
I feel so. Here I started the whole thing by saying I'm so glad to be in this seat, and I don't take it for granted, and I might lose it any time because I'm messing up the sound of. But there's a whole story behind that. Finish your thought, Sarah. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. That was it.
Okay,
I'm
good.
finished.
Yeah, what it was when we got back together in one room. There was something to. I don't even know what that is because
it felt so good.
Yeah, but technically, we had been meeting.
Yes.
But that was another dimension that couldn't be, mimicked by Zoom. I don't know what that is, but it is something for sure.
Yep. Well, you're able to see people's body language and just, there's something about face-to-face contact that is just amazing. I mean, otherwise, why would my Zoom group that I was just sharing about, we're planning to meet together in a common place next year.
On that island? Are you going to the island?
Ooh, that would be a great idea, Sarah.
Join that group real fast.
Yeah, I think our group member would be very happy about that if we all came to the island to be with her. So, yes, why else will we feel the need to do that?
Yeah.
We have each other on Zoom, but there is something about that face-to-face connection of meeting each other that does something for the soul, I think.
That's true. That's definitely true. I remember, though, as you were saying that, Brett, so I was in a virtual group for a little while, and it was great. I enjoyed it a lot because I needed that. I needed some connection and community. But it was like as soon as some people started meeting in person, it was like the virtual group kind of just went, because it was like, yeah, we could do that, but it's easier to just not do it now, which is really interesting to think of. But also, I still have to point this out. We still say Zoom. Like, we stay Zoom. Like, that happens so fast. Like, it's become a verb. And I mean, what happened to Skype?
Zoom.
What happened to Skype? I need to know this.
What happened to it?
It was so big. And
the people at Skype are asking themselves the same question.
It had some issues.
Yeah, did it?
Yeah.
But all the videos.
Accessibility, man.
Yeah. All of those little video interactions. But no, it's really good information. Thank you for bringing that. And so just a couple more questions as we wrap up. I think, during the pandemic, we talked about social isolation and what, for some people, that's going to be really hard. It's becoming hard for them to kind of get back into seeing people, being around people. There's some fear there. There's still some but I think for some people who are just like, I was so used to this routine, like, what does that like, kind of getting back into that? Like, we slowly getting back to face-to-face, more connections.
Yeah. I think I've noticed, like, even in my own little world, how difficult it is once you get used to not being around people, how much harder it is for you to force yourself to be around people again. I have a girl in one of my groups that struggles with anxiety, and she did before the pandemic, and the pandemic made that worse for her because, this gives me a great excuse to stay home now and isolate. And she said it became suffocating to her. Wow. And she had to meet with somebody from the church to say, help me through this. Help me get from my couch back to the front door of the church.
Yeah.
And so she agreed to meet her at the front door of the church, literally meet her at the front door of the church and just be with her so she could help overcome that part of her anxiety of being around people again. And, we need to keep in mind that there are people out there that's the big reality for them right now, that they're struggling with anxiety or depression, and it's hard for them to be around people again. You get used to being by yourself.
Yeah. And I think taking some of the things you've said already, two parts of that, like one, respecting people's boundaries there. Like if it's still awkward for them, it's okay. But then also asking them some of the hard questions of like, keep asking, keep showing up, keep encouraging and creating a small space. Maybe it's just meeting them outside first and then creating a space to where they want to, whether it's church or other places, just connecting in face-to-face spaces. So that's good. I know, one of the things that you're passionate about and advocate for is healthy marriages, and a part of a Leading Grace marriage at one of our campuses. I know obviously marriages have to be a conversation that people are trying to figure out, like, is it created more time together in the last year? What are some resources or things you could give to people for that?
Yeah, so some books that I like to recommend to people, and I think that Ryan and Cynthia talked about this very book when they talked, was The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a classic, and it's a very easy read and something I think is really practical for couples. Another good one is Sacred Marriage by Gary Thomas. And we found in our couples enrichment group, we've listened to several videos by Andy Stanley and Craig Groeschel. They have 2 really great series on marriages. You can just YouTube those and show them in your group. So those have created some really good conversations in our groups.
Cool.
So, yeah. And I've also used material by John Gottman. I like some of his stuff. Some of his stuff I don't necessarily agree with, but.
Cool. We need to have a whole thing on what you don't agree with.
Which ones do you agree with?
Okay. We
Get
won't
some
go into
controversy
that now.
on this thing. Not now. Maybe someday.
I see you've got some things here for parenting too, some resources for that.
Yes. So for parents, I love Henry Cloud and John Townsend. They both have great senses of humor, and they're just really good with the boundary stuff with kids and teens and that sort of thing. I think sometimes parents are afraid to set boundaries with their kids. You know, what's going to happen if I'm not my kid's best friend?
Wow.
I think they have some really good stuff. There's a book called Grace-Based Parenting that's good, and one that's definitely more conservative. I mean, you know, when you read books on parenting and marriage and everything, you know, take the stuff that you think is good and kind of let the other stuff go. But the one that I read when my kids were little was Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. It's really good.
Wow.
So those are my recommendations, Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. There's a question we've been asking everyone at the end. Do you remember what it is?
The end of
the episodes.
The last 3 weeks, or
I think you started it a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I'm lost.
I was going to have you ask it.
You were.
He doesn't remember.
Okay, when
Sarah.
you answer it, it's okay.
Yeah. If you could give people one restorative practice to start with today, what would it be?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a
So
great
I have to
question.
choose one.
It doesn't have to be one. Maybe you could give us a couple.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. Well, the best restorative practice I've found is just journaling out my prayers to God. And being able to look back on those and see how he's answered. It's just been amazing. I keep a little journal by my little chair that I sit in the morning, and I don't write in it every day, but those days when I really need it, I will do that, and I'll look back and see how he's answered through everything. It's really cool to see through COVID how he answered some prayers. Yeah. I love taking vacation, Sarah. I love it. And I love getting out in nature. And those are 2 of my top 2 restorative practices. As far as people-based restorative practices, we, in our group, we just really get a lot out of sharing prayer requests with each other. That's where we get real with each other, and this is what's really going on in my life, and this is what I need prayer for.
Yeah.
So
It's simple. I mean, in a sense, those things are simple. Sometimes but it's also, kind of bearing part of yourself when you share some of those things too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the key is to be intentional about them, though.
Yeah.
Am I sharing prayer requests with people in a group setting? Am I doing that? I have that in my life. And if the answer is no, then I need to move in that direction. It's easy to take for granted. But or am I getting out in nature enough? Am I setting aside time to do vacations, or am I journaling?
That's right.
Ultimately, it's kind of intentionality at the end of the day.
Yeah. It absolutely is. I always feel better after I do those things.
Yeah. I need a vacation.
Yes, you do, Sarah. Where are you going to go?
I just had one, so I can't knock that. I think you do. Yeah.
Someday.
You can start planning one.
Yeah. Sarah, this is great. Thank you for coming on and sharing some experiences. And Sarah's a great just asset to not only the One Life team, but just, the community of people you get to be with. So thank you for coming and sharing some of that with us. And I didn't ask this, but I'm sure she'd be willing to. If you guys have any questions or any other thoughts, anything like that, you can email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org. Or again, you can comment anywhere that you see this podcast on YouTube or anywhere you're listening right now. I always appreciate the feedback. It allows us to know what are the things that have been impactful for you. I did have someone send an email. I said I was going to lead with that. Totally forgot. But they said that they just really appreciated all the episodes. They've listened to every episode, and they asked for a mug because Brett said that on the episode. He goes, if you listen to all of them, you get a mug.
Oh, I did. Okay, yeah, we better come up with a mug.
Oh, I gave her one.
Podcast
Oh, you did? Okay, it was like a Miami
mug.
Dolphins mug or something.
I did have one of those as a kid. That's another story.
Oh, okay, good.
Burned it up. It's fine. But yeah, it was a One Life mug. So we had a couple of those around, and so I ended up giving her that. But
Sweet.
yeah, Sarah, thanks again for being on. Brett, anything to close with?
Well, we were going to end the series on Easter, but we extended it another 3 weeks, just so we can have this conversation even deeper. So just keep tuning in and again, be intentional about it, because that's why we're doing this, to try to equip everybody. Yeah,
and we've got a few things coming up. At One Life, we recently kind of showed our spiritual formation path, and there we have a knowledge side and a practice side, and we also have Kickstart, which is the first thing we ask everyone to go through if you're part of One Life. We have a new Kickstart coming up at all of our campuses soon. We have on the knowledge side, we have Christian Worldview 201 coming up, which is just kind of fundamentals, basics of the Christian faith, and that's going to be virtual. So even if you're not a part of One Life, you want to be a part of that, totally check that out. Carolyn's great. She was on the podcast a few weeks ago. She's going to be leading that. And then we have Centered, which is a series that we did a few years ago here at One Life Church, and we turned it into a class that kind of talking through and exploring some of the most important and meaningful questions of life. And then on the practice side, some things like Grace Marriage, the next installment next weekend, or I guess it's just one day. It's coming up at both our Henderson campus and East campus, and then many ways you can connect with Sarah about groups and teams. So thank you guys for being a part, and thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.